Rough City episode 10, and this is a killer episode 10. We have going on a sort of band reunion. Joining us, our old singer, Mica Meneke, or as we know him, Mica Maniac.
What up?
What's up, brother? Dude, so good to fucking hear from you. Keith's actually running late. He's going to jump in the mix pretty soon. But what is up, dude? We haven't talked in a long, long time.
I don't know, dude. Just being a parent, mainly these days.
Fuck yeah. How was your Halloween?
It was pretty good, mellow. We got out late, but it was pretty cool because the kids, the last few houses we hit, they were out of candy, so they just gave them money and then shut off their lights. The kids were stoked.
Fuck yeah. Damn, I don't think I ever got money for Halloween.
I never did.
Well, you guys stay clear of the fires over there. And speaking of Halloween, I have a funny story.
I remember that show.
Dude, wait, no, do you remember this one? Because Halloween, our old band, our very first show ever was on a Halloween night. And you heard that story when we did the party.
Oh, yeah.
So we decided to make our anniversary every year a Halloween extravaganza. So we would usually like paint our faces like corpse paint. And there's this picture right here, Souls of Thunder.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. The goofy shot.
It's just fucking hilarious. But
the happiest black metal band ever.
White metal. So yeah, but there was this one show in particular, this one Halloween night. We're like, all right. And it was at Aptos Club in Aptos. This little dive bar. Do you remember this shit?
Yep.
And Mica, you had this thing. Okay, this is hilarious. Mica's genius was, hey guys, I got a great idea. Let's make this movie makeup stuff because it lasts a lot longer because it's like hard and gelatin. And you know what, Mica? That really works well in theory. Or it might work well for movies or like still shots or something because it's like this gelatin. But we didn't really take into account that we sweat. And
when it gets hot, it melts.
Dude, that was so. All right, I remember what I decided to do was just like 2 red bloody lines going down my eyes long ways, like cuts. Pretty simple, but that made it right across my eyes. Looked good before we got on stage. I think Nate just had a upside down cross in his forehead or something. Keith was the lucky one. He just did something simple like blood coming out of his mouth. So his eyes were no problem. Brian Kinney came out and he wrote, "I fuck Satan" on the inside of his arms. On the inside of his arm. But he did it in the mirror backwards. So he came out and was like, "Look at this." And I was like, "Satan fuck I?" He goes, "Oh." But I remember you had, you went all out because Mike is pretty good at actual like the movie. Like, who was your like mentor? Wasn't
this
it something?
Guy? It was this dude Devin. He worked on like Nightmare on Elm Street and like all these big movies, and I studied under him for a little while in Carmel Valley.
That's right. I remember. He was some big deal dude.
Yeah, he used to do big movies down in Hollywood, making a lot of money in the scene, and then just got sick of fucking Hollywood and moved out to Carmel Valley. And he did after that. He just did like little B movies and stuff like that, and teaching people. People would come down from like the Bay Area and shit and study under him.
Fucking sick, dude. I remember. Yeah, you had a mask in your practice spot that you was supposed to be a legitimate Leatherface casting, right?
Yeah, it's the Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, the second one, which is like the stupidest one ever, but the mask was sick as fuck. I still have it.
That's fucking huge. That's awesome. So yeah, Mica it was a great idea, and we had all the stuff for it. And yeah, in theory, it would seem nice because it doesn't drip off and smear or smudge. But okay. So what you had going, you went all out. You had this like, it was like kind of I don't know how you would like a skull cap kind of.
Yeah. So it was a latex cap that I had made that had like a giant pentagram on it or something like that.
Right. But it was only that.
To it.
But it was only half. It was like the top of your head.
Yeah.
And then the bottom, like the bottom of your face, you did the rest like white corpse paint and finished it up. But that's what made it funny, is because it looks sick. You were this creature with like a, that had no hair on the top. This fucking, it all looked really sick. This very demonous thing. And then it got so hot. Eventually, firstly, I remember after like the first song, this blood across my eyes hardened and the sweat it just started like becoming this congealed, like fat substance. And it stung my eyes and burned so bad. And then I'm headbanging, and that guitarist move, or actually anybody in a band, when you do that, you pop your head back to get your head out of your face, but it also looks cool. Like we all do it when we need to see the guitar for a minute. Oh, but when I popped my head back, nothing would happen. My hair was still just
glued to your face.
And I'm just like, I'm trying to get air. Fucking eyes are burning. And, Brian's got this Satan fuck eye or whatever it is on the inside of his arms. And then you got so hot eventually, you just you couldn't take it anymore. So you tore off the skull cap thing on the top of your head, and you're just like, but you didn't paint underneath, so it just left the bottom half white, like this giant milk mustache. At the end of it, we did not look scary. We looked we were just a disaster. I don't remember one note of music that night. I just remember the pain and panic. So that was
fucking pulled it off though, got through it.
Oh, dude, we've never train wrecked ever out of our whole career. I mean, dude, remember there's a couple times Keith started the wrong song?
Yeah.
Dude, and now that in a death metal band, if you can only imagine, like the whole band's playing one song and the drummer starts something completely different, and the chaos and the looks that went around, like, what is going on? And Michael, I remember one time Keith's doing that. 2 different songs going on. You didn't know what to do in the mic, so you just fucking threw in the towel and were like, fucking
fucking let out a scream.
Fuck this! Oh, okay, that reminds me of another funny quick story. Do you remember this night? We started this cluster of local shows, and we were about to put out the album Mechanize. And I don't know why, but one of them was a local church show.
Oh, fuck, yeah. I don't remember that because I was blacked out drunk.
So basically, we were like, okay, we'll play a church, whatever. I think it was some Christian metal band who booked it. And he knew our music. He knew we were going to get a draw there. So they book us. He's all right, we only have one rule, no cussing.
Yeah, they made us made me sign a waiver because I was a singer that I would not like swear on stage.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, dude.
So basically me and Nate already knew, just like, okay, Micah, it was like the Doors moment with the fucking Jim Morrison. But we didn't care. So we're up there, we're playing. And of course, Micah gets up to the mic, crouches down and just goes, I'm like, man, that's not even in the lyrics in the song, man. Come on.
Dude, I was so drunk that night. I think every other word out of my mouth that night was a cuss word.
I remember at one point, like me and Nate both tried to kick you over, and you were crouched down. But since we both kicked on both sides, you just stood there and got kicked. Like, ow. Oh, man. That was classic. Shit, dude. One more real quick. We could actually sit here for 2 hours, I'm sure, and think of Soul Asunder shows, but I'd like to bring up some other things. But dude, there's one thing we all kind of feel guilty about, and it was when we were on tour. I don't know if you remember this.
Let's hear it.
We were parked outside. It was somewhere really, really cold, and I think you were already asleep in the van. And we were all sick of each other, literally barely talked to each other. It was toward the end of the tour. We barely talked to each other anymore. We were just fucking over it. We pull out into this hotel. Somebody got the room, got the keys. And you're asleep in the back seat and like sitting bitch in the middle. and everybody we parked the car, everybody looked at you, and then everyone just got out. It was almost like somebody knew someone needed to wake Mica up and say, we're going to the room. But the funny thing is, no one did. And no one cared. We just didn't care anymore. We were assholes. And we just went into the room. We figured someone will tell him. But, you know, it was just like, hey, who didn't tell him? Well, not you. No one wanted to blame each other. So anyway, like 3 a.m, I don't even know. How did you find out what room we were in? Did you go knock
I
it?
have no idea, dude.
And we answered the door like 3 a.m. and you were like an icicle, like, you guys, fuck you guys, man. You guys fucking suck. Just frozen.
Dude, remember when we fucking broke down? I think we were on our way to Salt Lake City, and we broke down in like the Colorado mountains or something like that.
Wyoming.
Yeah, Wyoming. Yeah, and like we ended up getting towed to a muffler shop or whatever to get the thing fixed in the morning. They were closed, and we had to sleep in the parking lot in the van. And it was so cold that night that I remember waking up in the morning, and from all our breath and the condensation on the windows, there was like an inch thick of ice.
Oh my God.
On the inside of the windows. Our breath was freezing. That's how cold it was. And I think you got hella sick after that, actually.
So I was sick for that.
Yeah.
I was sick during that icy shit. Yeah, because I remember I passed out while we were on the roadside in Wyoming, and then I woke up in the mechanics on the lift. No one woke me up to get me out. So I just looked. I was like, "Fuck it." I just went back to sleep while they worked on the van.
You had like 104 fever, dude. It was brutal.
Oh, dude, because I was laying in the hatch of the van, which was actually the nicest spot to sleep, but the most dangerous, because literally it's just that swinging opening door between you and the freeway. And it was, and we didn't care. We were like, dude, let it happen. It'll take me out of my misery.
Right? That was like, yeah, dude. You know, it's funny though, dude. That tour was brutal. The shows were fucking weak with crowd. It was not promoted, but all in all, it was like one of my favorite tours.
That's awesome. I honestly,
I think it was the guys we were touring with. We just had so much fun going to like Dimebag Darrell's strip club and like giving them a CD, and because I wanted them to give it to Dimebag, or no, not Dimebag. Dimebag was dead. Vinnie Paul was like, yeah, give the CD to Vinnie. And so we're all sitting down in the strip club, and all of a sudden over the loudspeaker, oh, we've got Asunder in the house, and this is their new album. And he dropped one of our songs, and all these strippers came out and started stripping to our album. It was like the most epic thing ever.
That was the biggest high five moment of our band history, I think. I even threw a girl off my lap, like, get the fuck off. I gotta find my band. High five moment. And dude, that was we went to Dimebag's grave. A lot of good stories for that tour. I wish at that point I was still such the the young fucking driven. I wish I would have relaxed more and just experienced it rather than worrying about wanting to be Metallica.
Yeah.
You know? But I did for the most part. I think it was 50-50. I think I was because it was one of the best things I ever experienced for sure. Fucking, it was a blast. It was a rough tour for everybody.
Man.
Fuck yeah. All right, let's move back in time. I wanted to ask about what got you into metal, because Mica here, for people who don't know, we spent a long time in our local, I call it local band, sure. We didn't make it, quote unquote, but it depends on what you call making it. We did a lot that a lot of garage bands don't do, that's for sure. But Mica did eventually leave our garage band and join a real band known as Origin. And we're going to ask about that too. But tell us about, when did you first get into metal?
I don't know, dude. I was never into music. My brothers were all older, and so I never had like an older brother to show me bands or show me music at all. So I just wasn't into music. And like hit middle school, you know, everybody's listening to hip hop shit. I kind of got into, you know, psychedelics. I was listening to the Doors and Pink Floyd and shit like that. And but it was just kind of a passing thing. And then I think my first metal show was actually, I saw this band Clown House, which had my later drummer Matt O'Mara in it. And they were like old death metal band in Monterey. You know, it was the first time, it was like a pizzeria or something. They had a little mosh pit. And I think just moshing, that like got me into it, like being in a mosh pit and experiencing that. But what really changed my life was about a year or two later, I think it was maybe 1996, and I went and saw Slayer in Santa Cruz at the Civic Auditorium, and it changed my life forever. I mean, the energy and just, I mean, it was just so intense, so insane. That night, literally, I remember I'm like, I want to do that, and I want to do that for the rest of my life. Like that show, without that show, who knows where my life would have gone. That show literally changed the whole direction, the path of my existence.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
Slayer's a big tamale.
Yeah.
And okay, so Matt O'Mara, that's a whole other actually bullet point. That's a whole other bullet point I wanted to talk about. Because you guys eventually started your first band, Legion Victorious. Talk about that a little bit, and then that's kind of where I show up in the story. So what were your major influences for Legion Victorious?
Back then, dude, I was just getting after seeing Slayer. I was getting into, you know, heavier and heavier stuff. We got into me and my buddy Gator, who now plays in Vital Remains, has been for like the last 10 years, became my bass player. He was way more into metal. He grew up on it at a younger age, and he was turning me on to like Cannibal Corpse, Deicide, Obituary, all those Florida death metal bands and that whole 90s scene. And so I was getting more and more into music. We kind of had this, couple other buddies had a little band. I was going to sing for them, but that like dissipated. Nothing ever happened. And then it was just left with me and Gabe. And so I went out and bought a little guitar and a little practice amp. And Gator was playing bass, and he just started showing me shit on bass, transposing it to guitar. And that was the beginning of Legion Victorious. Us sitting in my bedroom till like 2 a.m. jamming. And then we brought in my buddy Jeff Drew, and he came in on second guitar, and we played. I don't know. We played for a few years with no drummer. We just kept writing music and slamming fucking death metal out in a little garage in Kashawa. And we actually played one show. It was like the most embarrassing thing ever at MPC with no drummer.
What?
And,
what? A death metal band with no drummer? Oh, no shit.
Drummer. It was embarrassing. But and then eventually there was this dude in town. There was no drum. Nobody was really into that kind of music.
Dude, in Monterey?
Yeah, this is like mid 90s, late 90s. And there was this one dude we knew though, Matt O'Mara. And we kept asking him, and he was always in like 4 bands or something. So one day I saw him down at the Carmel Beach, and I was like, dude, we really need a drummer. We got some sick ass music. And so he finally came out and jammed with us, and Legion Victorious was formed.
That's basically how I felt when I eventually moved to Monterey, which is like 2000, maybe 2001. And when I moved there from San Francisco, I left all my other friends and I had no friends there. My dad's a musician, and this drummer that he worked with could see that I had bought an electric guitar. At that point, I was just learning how to write metal in my room and just basically writing songs, figuring it was my like fortress of solitude, like Superman, hoping one day all of this shit would be on stage. So I was just writing and writing. And my dad's friend was like, hey, I guess he just did like a jazz drum workshop somewhere at a school. And he goes, you should check out, you should call this guy Matt. And he was talking about Matt O'Mara, because Matt O'Mara, who's 150% metal, but he still appreciated all kinds of jazz, or all kinds of drumming and music. So jazz drumming, he would just spend all his time with music. So I guess he went to this jazz drum workshop, and so my dad's friend was like, well, he's in some kind of metal band or something. And I ended up calling him. I was just so desperate to talk to other musicians in this new town. And Matt O'Mara mentioned, yeah, I'm in a band. We're a death metal band. We're playing live in Carmel tonight. And I thought to myself, what? There is a death metal show in Carmel?
Right.
Like, it was the best news I ever heard in my life. And I remember going, I was so excited to go just to talk to you guys. Because I'm like, I had no experience on stage, but you guys were doing it. And that's where my head was. I was like, you guys are doing what I always wanted to do. And I have no band. So I was so excited. And I started hanging out regularly. I don't know if you remember meeting me at that show, but that's the first night I met you. But I started hanging out with Matt pretty regularly. And let's talk about Matt for a minute, because Matt must know he is a character. And I say this with love. If I hope he's doing well. But he is a character for sure. This guy, I mean, this is what he's like. Honestly, he's like the live action Beavis.
Yes, that's a good put it.
I mean, with long blonde hair, Beavis, so metal. He showed me Origin. He's the one. The first time I ever heard Origin, he showed me their whole album on a trip up to San Francisco, and he wanted to be the drummer for Asunder so badly, but I in my youth was pretty stubborn. I was very kind of cutthroat. I really was, not to sound like an ass, but I probably was. It had to be all or nothing, especially when drums were concerned. But he really, really wanted to do it. In fact, I even took him to meet Brian Kinney, my other guitarist, one time, and we drove up. He drove me to San Francisco to meet Brian, and I'll never forget. He comes out of the car, and he's shirtless, and he has his chest hair shaved into an upside down cross. And Brian Kenny's like, "Oh, this guy's fucking serious." But Matt, Nate recently ran into him at a concert.
No shit.
Dude, he said he was behind him, and he could hear his voice already. He could tell it was Matt. And then I guess he heard Nate talk about something, and he said Matt looked at Nate and goes, "Jazz." And I don't think Nate even corrected him, but he's talking to him, and Nate eventually was just thinking, all right, how do I leave this scenario? And finally he just said fuck it and goes, well, hey dude, I gotta go, and then just turned his back to him and looked at the stage. But I'll say this, man. Matt knew what Chuck Schuldiner meant to me in those days. Like at that time, that was my lifeblood, was death. Yeah. And we had countless conversations about it. And I will never forget, it was around Christmas time when I got a phone call at home, and Matt hardly ever called me. He usually we scheduled when to meet up and he'd be there. And he called me on the phone. I was like, what's up? And he just said, he's gone. And I knew exactly what he was talking about when Chuck passed away.
I was in, oh, dude, when yeah, dude, that was horrible news.
Yeah, I play Voice of the Soul like right away. But yeah, have you heard from Matt lately?
I hear from him occasionally, dude. He's had a rough go. You know, dude, the guy never grew up. He was like, he's still a kid at heart, and I think he's had a hard time being an adult and not having a band and shit like that. So, but yeah, I chat with him every once in a while, every few months or so. He'll call me out of the blue and ask me for another Legion Victorious CD or something like that. Yeah.
Dude, yeah, I hope he's doing well, man. It'd be great to talk to him. Definitely a good guy. So, yeah, Legion Victorious, I remember seeing that live. And at one point, I was trying out singers, and I kept thinking of your range, your high-end range when you were doing vocals, because you play guitar and sing in Legion Victorious. And I'm like, man, if we,
Backup vocals in Legion.
Yeah. Right. And I'm like, if we could get that guy, we're golden. And I remember asking you a couple times. I think we met one time and then didn't talk to each other for a couple of years. And I scrambled to get your name again down the line. And you came in, I worked at a video store, and you came in and we were trying out this other guy, which I still wanted to be fair to. But I was telling you, I don't know if it's going to really work out. I don't know, but we were playing with him. I didn't want to let him down, And you did the right thing. You did totally right. Because I remember like the following week, you randomly came back by my work and just went, so how's that singer going? And that's all I needed. It really, I saw, okay, this guy's dedicated. He's fighting for the spot while being a cool guy, and just asked a question. That's all he did. And then it made me go, you know what? How is that singer going? Not great. This guy needs a chance.
Cool. Yeah, dude. I was actually Legion was broken up at that point, and that at that time I was working with that dude Devin doing special effects, trying to keep my mind busy without music.
Yeah, and that was it, dude. That
music back in my life
for sure, and that was it. And I love that mentality too, that you knew exactly what to do, and you knew exactly what to tell me to kind of, because we didn't really know each other well enough for you to go, dude, stop wasting your fucking time with that guy. Instead, you just did it in a different way with proper etiquette. And I'm like, this guy means business. Why am I wasting time with this other guy? And I was like, all right, why don't you come with us next week? And the same thing kind of happened later when we were looking for a bass player, and finally I got Sam to agree. It took a couple times to convince him. I remember calling you and I said, hey, Sam said he's going to drive to Monterey to learn. And before I could even finish the song, you went, oh, he's in. Like, that's our guy. The fact that he's done deal, the fact that he's dedicated enough to drive 2 hours, that's all you had to say. Dude, yeah, you can't be doing this in a bar. That won't work.
I know. That's why I'm going outside.
Oh. Well, it wasn't working at all for a minute, but yeah.
Okay. So
Loud noise is no good.
Yeah, I'm gonna go outside. But you know what? Is Mica there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sick. What's up, man? How you doing?
Good, dude.
Can you watch this for me? Can you watch this for me?
Keith's killing me here.
On downstairs.
Return of the Mac. They're killing me, Smalls. This is already such temperamental technology that you're gonna do this with a night on the town.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was. Well,
That sounds better.
Well, to be fair, I was actually.
That sounds fine now.
I was actually on a date, but.
Well, then what the fuck are you wasting your time with us for? Get the fuck out of here.
No. Because I told you I was going to do it, and I'm going to commit.
Micah, will you slap him through the internet? Are you kidding me?
Go get laid, dude.
No. It's all good. We're just hanging out, and we're gonna hang out afterwards. I already told you.
Oh, my God. All right,
so
well, look.
Listen, here's what I would like to do while I'm on the phone is that
Okay.
let's talk to Micah for a while, and then let's review those albums.
Okay.
Cool.
So how was the show? You guys got to play together.
It was great.
Metal.
I loved it. It was actually.
Yeah, it was fucking.
No, go ahead, Micah. Sorry.
I was gonna say it was fucking awesome seeing you guys and fucking. I don't know, dude. Meant a lot having you guys up here.
No, it was great. I was really happy to see you as well. It's been so long, and I'm glad that you're doing really well. Congratulations on the newborn. And also, it was a beautiful place to play. And I ended up going down to the river and like hanging out there for a while and just like meditating before I had to go on stage. And that was honestly probably one of the best Ontogeny shows that we've ever played. That Ontogeny's ever played. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, dude. So the place we played is here in Dunsmuir, where I live. It's like just up the street from me, and it's at a place called the Botanical Gardens. Like super beautiful, surrounded by trees. It's like a mini, like little amphitheater. It's the lawn cuts down to the stage, slants down to the stage. Yeah.
That's awesome. And you guys were able to do While Between Worlds together, so that's fucking rad. Dude, yeah. Mike, I don't know, Micah, did you ever see the footage of that one and only Soul Asunder show where I was the singer?
I think I did see some of that a long time ago, yeah.
Boy, it was a disaster, but it was fun.
No, that was a good show. That was the show we played at the DNA. I think Micah had already moved away, and it was our very, very last show. And
yeah,
we played, actually the guy from sickdrummer.com was there, and he filmed me playing drums to that one song.
Yeah, I checked that footage out.
Yeah, that was
we opened for Vela Mea and Periphery, so that's the only reason like we made it happen, even though it was like half the band. But it was fun. It was cool to it's funny that the video exists to kind of see it. But yeah.
Yeah. But that was our last hurrah.
That was the last hurrah. All right, and you know what? I'm speaking now to two of my ex-bandmates, but you are the two guys who actually made it compared to the rest of, well, at least me. That's for sure. You both toured the world. Keith and you in different bands, but Micah, tell us a bit about what was it like to become the lead singer of world famous Origin, and do you have any memorable or funny and awesome tour stories?
Dude, it was like, I don't know, dude. It's like a dream, dude. I look back on it now and it's like a dream, dude. show was flying to New Zealand, and we were touring New Zealand and Australia, and touring with Psychroptic, Decapitated, and Misery Index, I believe. And
Wow.
dude, it was just like I walked off the airport, this giant fucking bus, and like, dude, it was weird though, like going backstage and being back there with all these dudes I'd been listening to for like, 20 years, my idols in music. And like, here I am, one of them now. But I remember that first show, I was sitting backstage in the green room, and the guys from Decapitated came in, and I like got up off the couch. I'm like, here you go, here's a seat, like fucking. I felt like a nobody, but as time went on, dude, it was, all those guys just became regular dudes and friends of mine and shit.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
What was your favorite place to visit when you were doing that like world tour?
My favorite part about it actually was I would pass out drunk probably earlier than everybody else. Like after the show, after we played our show, it was a party until like 2 a.m. But I was always the first one up, and I would wake up in a different country every night. Instead of a different city, you're literally in a different country. And so I would get up early and walk around the cities or wherever and taking photos and stuff. But Belgium was one of the coolest places to like truck around, and the architecture and the churches were like so unbelievably beautiful. And or there'd be like, you go downtown, there's McDonald's on one side of the street and a castle with a moat around it on the other side of the street.
Wow.
Super epic. Yeah, I got to visit a bunch of castles and shit, and but all those shows were amazing, especially my last European tour, because that was a festival circuit, and I played like Summer Breeze and stuff was like 40,000 people, and dude, it was just epic. That's all I can say. It was epic.
That's fucking huge, man. I know. I can tell you this much. I guess it sort of happens because I've heard it before, but it's true. It's a feeling that I had. The sensation of you making it made it feel like a little bit of all of us made it, and then it made it feel like Keith all the way made it, because Keith did all the way make it. So fuck you both.
Well, to be honest, I mean, doing the tour with Covet was fun, and it was an experience that I'm glad I was able to do, touring the UK and stuff. But I mean, I'd like to do it again, but obviously with a different band, because there were some problems. But it was fun, and touring the States was also fun. I'd like to do it again one day. We'll see.
Well, it must be gratifying, because it used to be an inside joke that Keith would always say of, I'll see you in New Zealand, tour in New Zealand. We'd all laugh. And now both of you actually did it. So
that's right. I remember that.
You should feel good.
Hell yeah.
Sick, dude. All right. Well, this has been awesome. And Mica, man, thanks for making it. And you're obviously always welcome to jump in and join in just to shoot the shit, whatever musically is going on.
Yeah, dude, I'd love to.
Fuck yeah. And we're going to go ahead and get to the album reviews, which the first one comes from listener Brian, who recommended Burst, Lazarus Bird. I thought I hadn't heard this, but actually I did. I do remember when it came out. And it went in a very prog rock direction, which at the time when it came out, I guess I wasn't necessarily as into. I was looking toward, I was way more into the gent phase and things that were real math metal oriented. But these guys wanted to bring in a rock approach, but I can appreciate it a lot more now. So listening to it now, I can see kind of where their head was at and how they were like one of those bands from Europe that just wanted to do what they wanted to do and not necessarily follow genres and scenes and stuff. So going back and listening to Burst, Lazarus Bird, it was actually really cool. It's actually more of a style that I'm interested in listening to these days than when I was actually into Burst at the time. So good pick, Brian. I like this album a lot. Who's next?
Well, Mike, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Sick. Because I do have some questions to you about Possessed, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
The Burst album, I listened to it today, and I remember hearing it a long, long time ago. And I remember really, really, when I was first introduced to Burst, I think it was Mike Johns that actually played it to me for me first. I think we were all there. You, me, and really Chaz was there. But I really like that first album they put out. And I liked the second album as well. And I appreciate what they're doing on the third album, Lazarus Bird, but it didn't really grab me the same as those first two albums. I to be honest, I didn't like the production. I thought the drums were kind of boxy. I thought the guitars were kind of weak. But the songwriting was still very interesting. I like how they go from heavy rock to really clean guitar sort of stuff. And I thought that was really creative. And it seemed to me that they were each song was, trying to tell a story, or it's kind of like a journey, because the songs are pretty long. But my review on that album is if anybody's into like progressive rock, it's right up their alley, because it's not even really like a metal album. To me, it's way more like progressive rock.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Cool. Micah, what'd you think?
On my end, well, it's just, not really up my alley. You guys were always way more into like the progressive stuff. But what's interesting is today I can appreciate it a lot more than I would have when I was younger, being progressive and all that. But it doesn't catch me. It was hard for me to really. I don't even think I listened to the whole thing. It doesn't really grab me. But what's weird is like the stuff I'm writing today is more along some of it is like along that lines. Like the band I was in recently and started, Hella Metal, was the whole point of it was not to be just death metal or just black metal. It was like, I want to play anything that makes me feel good. And so I started doing a lot of clean vocals and things like that. So it's interesting. It didn't grab me. It's like the stuff I'm writing or might write, if I heard it, I might think the same thing about it. Maybe something I wouldn't listen to all the time, but I could really appreciate it.
Right. It's kind of matured, for lack of a better word, compared to Burst's first album. Like, they came out screaming, and now it seems like, did you guys just age like 20 years between albums?
Yeah, I noticed that he sings more on this album. There's more singing, a lot more singing.
And I don't particularly like his voice, although I like his melody. He doesn't really do anything, dramatic, but maybe that's kind of safe because it's just sort of there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I agree with that, Mica, too. It's I don't know. It's kind of like old dad rock put into a metal band in a way.
Kind of, yeah.
But I thought it was kind of cool too. So good, honest review. We dig it. We still recommend you guys check out Burst, all their stuff. But Lazarus Bird is their proggy rocky type one. And that'll move to the next recommendation, which is our guest here, Mica's pick, Possessed.
Churches burn to dust, and the demons rise again. With the words of turn to rust, then hell on earth is real. Where the fires never quench, and the worm it never dies. When nasty teeth are clenched, and the mouths are filled with lies. Where the churches burn to dust, and the demons rise again. With the words of turn to rust, then hell on earth is real. Bring you pain, fire and now, brought into the flames, sacrifice to the down into hell. The night devours, the day see the chasm burn. I will show the way, like a plague of hellborn death.
Mica, why don't you go first?
Well, Possessed was dude, they were actually one of the original like thrash metal, death metal crossover bands from the Bay Area. They're like, they were an influence for a lot of the early death metal. They were the ones pushing the envelope back in the day. And I never cared for Jeff Burka's vocals really. And I don't really care for him that much on this album. But the music is phenomenal. The solos are just fucking ripping. It's a speed metal classic, I think. It's like hearing something that should have been written in fucking 85 or something. Number one on the charts, written today.
Right.
But yeah, and their guitar player, Claudius Creamer, lives up in this area. He lives just up north here. And a really cool dude. He actually comes out to all the local shows. He was at the Metal in the Mountains show. He came to support that. He supports all the local bands here. Give a shout out to him because he's just a super down to earth dude. He doesn't, he's made it. He's huge, yet he doesn't have a big old ego or anything, and I really appreciate that. And he's just a fucking shredder, dude.
Fuck yeah. Keith, what you got?
Well, I'm really glad that that this was one of the recommendations to review because to be honest, I had never heard the Possessed before. Possessed. Is it the Possessed or just Possessed?
Just Possessed, I think. Yeah.
Okay. I listened to it and I agree with Michael 100%. I noticed, first of all, I didn't know they're from the Bay Area, so that's really cool. And I was listening to it in my car today, and I thought it was great. It was like the riffs were super heavy and fast. It is very thrashy, but then it does every once in a while it sort of falls into these like crazy death metal riffs with the really fast double bass. And I thought the production was great. It's super crisp and super heavy sounding. And I actually want to listen to it again. And I agree with Mica that I wasn't really a big fan of the vocals. When he screams, it's cool, but when he sings, it's not really my thing. But aside from that, it's actually a really like fun and exciting like metal album. And I was surprised because like I said before, I haven't heard them before. I've heard of them, and I sort of heard the name around, and I knew that they were kind of like an important influence in metal in general. But for some reason, never got around to it. But I really, really dig this album. There's one particular song, I think it's called Domination. It's like track 3 or something. That was like super sick, like super heavy and fast, and really fun to listen to.
Did you have questions, or did you already ask him about Possession?
No. I mean, he pretty much answered them. He said that they were sort of like a crossover thrash and death, which I totally heard. And I didn't know that. Yeah.
They broke up for, I think they were kaput for like 20 years or something.
Really?
Yeah, for like 20, 25 years. And then they just got back together about 2 years ago or something like that. A year and a half ago, something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So they just got back together.
Yeah, they just reformed and dropped this new album and been like touring like crazy. It actually hit pretty high on the U.S. Billboard chart too.
So this album that you had this review, that's one of the older ones though, right?
No, this is the new one.
Oh, this is the new one. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was going to say is it's you guys kind of already covered pretty much my whole review. Thanks a lot. No. But those are the points that I was going to make. One, the solos, again, it's really interesting whenever I hear a brutal death metal band that I haven't heard before, because the thing with me, I've never really been a fan of brutal death metal. I mean, there's only 2 or 3 that I can tell you I actually love. Other than that, it's got to have some melody in it for me. And but it doesn't mean I never admire it. I always admire it. And I actually admire it a lot more because I can't do it. That's why I always admired Nate's writing and Mica and your writing, because you guys write death metal. I don't know how. I probably could play it, maybe, but I couldn't play it well, but I could never write it. I don't have a mind for that. So hearing the solos on Possessed, like, dude, these guys are fucking virtuosos. They can do stuff I can never, ever do in any style. So serious players. And I definitely see what you mean. This is a new album, but it seems like it came right out of the fucking Death Leprosy era.
Yeah.
And so I always like hearing that. That just brings you to a place. The artwork is beautiful. Production, it feels like Possessed has been there all along, but like Keith, I'd never heard him. So it was really a treat.
Cool.
Yeah. And I'd like to add that I'm curious where they recorded the album, because I also really, really dug the guitar tone. The guitar was super sharp and just super heavy. And I was really, really digging that a lot, specifically.
Yeah, the production was awesome.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Really good stuff.
Fuck yes. Well, dude, this was fucking rad. Keith, it was great to hear you again. We've been missing you. And Mica, dude, so great. This was a badass mini band reunion we had here for a minute.
Hell yeah.
But Mica, man, you're welcome back to just shoot the shit and think about some music stuff to laugh at and talk about.
Cool. Yeah, I'd love to join you guys again, man. This was awesome. We didn't get into it much, but I don't do much more than just fucking family life these days, so I don't get out much. This was awesome, dude. It brought back a lot of really good memories, and great talking to you guys, dude. I really miss you guys. You guys were a huge part of my life, my life story, and we had some amazing times together. So really great catching up.
Yeah, I would definitely love to have you back on, Micah. And also, sorry for the technical difficulties and the timing, but I'm glad that I was able to jump in at least for a little while.
It was worth it. It was worth it, bro. And you know, we want to get this thing better. I feel you, Mike. That's the whole reason I actually started this, just to try to force all my friends to talk to me again. And it's working pretty good so far. So we'll try to figure out the next phase to make the audio work and all that shit. But until then, man, just keep listening and keep posting and keep reviewing, recommending albums for us, and we'll hit you up, man.
Awesome. Sounds good, you guys.
All right, guys. See y'all next time, and late.
All right, peace.